Hello and welcome to a video discussion with the National Crowdfunding Association of Canada. My name is Gabe Nasser. I'm an intern here at the NCFA, and the NCFA is Canada's crowdfunding hub. We work closely with industry groups, government, academia, and other business affiliates to create a strong and vibrant crowdfunding industry for all of Canada. Today we have a special interview with Richard Swart. Richard is the Director of Crowdfunding Research at UC Berkeley, which is in California. It's actually where I'm from. He wrote a very powerful paper for the World Bank recently about global crowdfunding and how it can help developing countries as well as developed countries, just globally. Within that paper, Swart foresees crowdfunding becoming a multi-billion-dollar global industry. On the other end of the spectrum, Swart also looks at corporate crowdfunding and how corporations can increase innovation within their products and their services and make their community impact stronger. And we talked with Richard about what he's doing globally and how crowdfunding is becoming more global and what areas of the world that it can impact, and why certain areas are more apt to adopt crowdfunding structures than others. One of the countries that Dr. Swart and the World Bank have been looking at recently is Kenya. And we asked Dr. Swart about why Kenya is a good place for crowdfunding to be utilized.
The World Bank has a number of initiatives looking at can crowdfunding work in what they call frontier nations, sort of those that are on the verge of economic expansion. And Kenya is actually quite interesting. They've got a fairly good educational system. I think they've got a better, more stable government than many others. They also have a massive tourist trade, and they work to keep that alive, because basically if you go on an African safari, about 2/3 of the time you go to Kenya. And Nairobi is the closest major city to Mount Kilimanjaro, so they have a huge tourist industry. So because of the tourist industry, obviously you have the infrastructure of restaurants and hotels, and fairly nice ones, and the government protects its revenue stream, so it's relatively stable and safe there.
Well, since crowdfunding takes so many different forms, you've got donation-based, you've got rewards-based, you have equity-based crowdfunding, you have all these different ways crowdfunding can be used. What ways do you think would be the most popular ways for people of Kenya to use crowdfunding? Is it through raising money as donations? Is it for starting new businesses?
Small businesses and entrepreneurship. They have a center they run in Nairobi called the Climate Innovation Center. And so it's like an accelerator for Africans, because they're not just from Kenya, that are working on coming up with climate and clean energy solutions. And they have a maker shop and a fabrication shop, all the things you would expect in a modern accelerator. So the World Bank is actually funding our research. My role is research and evaluation of how well the program is working, and there's other people coming in and actually doing training. But part of the strategy is also to what extent can crowdfunding be used to link diaspora investing flows back into countries. So the most successful example, of course, is our crowd, John Medved's play, where he's got Jewish diaspora investing in Israeli startups. And he has 5,300 investors from 31 nations pouring money into his platform. And he literally has more investor demand for deals than he has deals.
That's amazing.
And Israel's the #1 entrepreneurial country in the world, based on the number of technology startups and startups. The question is, how do you match other diaspora networks? And the Kenyans actually have a fairly broad network in the UK and the US, and some of them have done relatively well. So you can take that same argument and go with the Egyptians, Colombia and South America, Vietnamese. So the question is, where do you sort of have an entrepreneurial ecosystem in the US or Canada of a defined population? And is there the ability of that group, do they have enough resources to sort of put money back and investing into their home?
Right.
Support entrepreneurs back home. So that's sort of the broad strategy of the World Bank initiative.
So I think we have a good idea from your description of what the World Bank is doing to get crowdfunding established in these developing nations. I think we've got a good idea of how it can help build these communities in these nations. What about developed nations? How is crowdfunding being utilized? How is it finding success in other countries, like in the West?
The German system is heating up. There's a lot of activity in Germany. I think that's becoming the dominant European. It's hard in the Netherlands, but now it seems like Germany's surpassing them. The European Commission is very aggressively working towards expanding crowdfunding. They see it as a strategic initiative on a European level.
Seems like the UK, there's a lot of activity happening in the UK too.
Well, the UK is exploding as well, but I think Europe is catching up, I guess. I think in terms of activity, it started more in the UK and then moved over to the continent. But the continent, I think, soon will surpass it. But it's all being concentrated in Northern Europe. I mean, there is French and Italian and Spanish crowdfunding sites, but based on transaction volumes, it's happening in the Netherlands, Scandinavia, and Germany, essentially.
When it comes to the reasons why these countries are able to find success by using these crowdfunding tools, what's the main factors? I mean, it seems like if the people developing the portals are ambitious and excited about the product they're making, it can really assist the whole ecosystem, or is it more grassroots than that?
I think that's part of it, and I also just think it's a network density effect where you get enough people talking about something that are interconnected that excitement builds just as everyone's talking about this new model. It's disruptive. I think the companies also have to sort of understand that it's not just about the funding, and too many companies only see it as a funding mechanism, and they don't see it as a customer engagement mechanism, market discovery, product validation, social media engagement, brand engagement. There's multiple aspects of crowdfunding, and oftentimes what I consider those secondary benefits are actually more valuable in the long run.
So yeah, when you put it in terms of crowdfunding not just being for getting money, but also as a community tool, building communities, here at the NCFA, we're trying to build this industry. We're trying to help strengthen the industry. What ways do you think can Canada benefit from steps that the NCFA can take to make the whole industry stronger?
Can you do a Canadian crowdfunding day, sort of like I think Ruth Hedges is doing her global crowdfunding day, and I know there's one in the UK that Barry James and a couple of his friends have done. Sometimes the media likes to talk about that. Obviously, university partnerships are a great avenue in trying to get maybe a network of entrepreneur programs and universities to agree to do some sort of a competition or collaborative crowdfunding campaign tied to some sort of holiday or startup weekend.
Well, I think we've got a comprehensive idea of what you're doing with the World Bank and how crowdfunding is proliferating and all the strengths involved. I know you have limited time, so do you want to close with any final word or plugs for anything going on in Berkeley or elsewhere?
So we have two things going. We have our academic symposium coming up in a month. That's September 11th and 12th. But we have had no Canadian faculty submitted anything. So if you could remind folks that, and even if they can't get a paper in, it's the biggest meeting of the minds of researchers in crowdfunding. So that's something those of us who care about research. And secondly, we're sort of going out on a limb and doing a corporate crowdfunding class through our executive education program. Basically, how can corporations use crowdfunding? And I'm not talking about startups. I'm talking about Coke and IBM and major corporations. There's actually some really interesting models developing. So we're basically expanding the conversation of crowdfunding away from startups into this is a mechanism for engagement and how can a billion-dollar company use it.
Yeah, and you're having an event focused on that?
Yeah, if you just go to crowdfunding.berkeley.edu, you'll see the page that talks about that. So if you guys can help promote that in Canada, because we'd love to see some international people come as well.
Yeah, indeed, and I'll be sure to check those out and relay whatever happens back to Craig here in Canada. Thanks for chatting and stopping for us.
All right, no problem. Thanks, Gabe.
See you, Richard.
Look me up what's around campus.
Sure will.
All right, thanks. Bye.
I'd like to thank Richard Swart for taking the time and chatting with us here at the National Crowdfunding Association of Canada. I'm glad you joined us for this video, for this little interview we did with Dr. Swart. I think we got some interesting information about global crowdfunding, where things are headed. And I hope you join us for another video shortly. And this is Gabe with the NCFA. See you next time.